Hi guys, I'm Max Weinbuck with XDATV, and today I'm going to be showing you guys something a little different. It's going to be Android Q versus iOS 13. Let's get started. To show you guys the difference between these two devices, I've got the Pixel 3 XL running the latest Android Q beta, which I believe is beta 4, and I've got the iPhone XS running iOS 13 beta 2. Off to the side here, for some of the other features, I do also have the iPad Pro and a MacBook Pro running those latest betas as well. So, let's just get into this and show you guys what the main features are on each OS. And I would say the one main feature that both of these devices got was actually their dark mode. So you can see here, Google has it over in the quick settings, and iOS has it right up here in their control panel. Just get rid of that notification. And you get this dark mode. So on iOS, your home screen actually changes depending on if the dark mode is enabled or disabled. And so do your applications. So messages changes, that changes, settings. Every system app will change to the dark mode. On Android, some do. So the phone app does, but Messages does not. Google Chrome does. I do not have that enabled, but not every app does. And when you're actually looking at it, this dark mode in some apps is actually just a kind of a gray mode. On iOS, it is a full dark mode. Some apps might be gray, like the music app, which I don't use, but otherwise they are usually just dark. Another feature is actually the gesture navigation on Android. So that compares to what Apple's had. Some people have been calling it a direct copy, but it's a little bit different. So you can see here we go to full gestural navigations and go home. So let's open up the App Store on both phones. Google Play and App Store. If I want to go home, I go home. Just swipe up. It's the same type of swipe up on both of them. The animation's definitely nicer on iOS, but it's also a little bit glitchy here. So that could get fixed up. If I want to go to my recent apps, swipe up and hold. I get my recent apps. Again, swipe up to go back. And then iOS does not have a back button, but they do have this kind of like, so let's say I go up here. You can swipe back in some apps. It's a thing, it's just not every app. And as you can see here, Android does have a back gesture. So you just swipe over from the screen. That does interfere with that settings, but I hope they work on that. But those are the two different gestures. They're really similar when you look at it, but slightly different. And then you actually have those new permissions in Android. So let's go over to my apps and show all apps. And let's go to the app brief. I do believe I have that installed here. I don't, but I can show you guys on Discord. Now let's go Discord on my phone as well. Here we go. So these are the permissions here. And that doesn't show permission. Yeah. So this actually does show the permissions here. So on my Pixel, it has access to the storage, camera, contacts, and microphone. Over on my iPhone, it just has access over to my photos. You can see read, write, and then this one is everything as well. This will ask for permissions depending on what you're doing, but that's just how that one works. They're really relatively similar. I guess Android has more options, but both of them are pretty similar. And yeah, those are kind of like the same features, the things that people might say were copied from one device to another. But either way, it's good that both devices actually have them. Now, one of the features I really like is actually called, this is more moving over to the iPad and Mac part. It's called Sidecar. So let me show you guys that right now. So this is a really cool feature where you can actually use an iPad as a second display to your Mac. It is kind of buggy. It does not always work. But when you're connected to the same Wi-Fi in the same area, you can go to Settings, then click Sidecar, and connect to your device. So when I do that, my iPad becomes a second display to my Mac. This is a really cool feature that is new in iOS 13. And there we go. I don't believe this has any Android tablet equivalent, mostly because Android tablets really aren't a popular thing, but it does exist and it's really cool on iOS. You can also use the pencil as a type of mouse or pointer, and it works out well. That is really cool that Apple did add in iOS 13. So the next feature here is actually going to be with a hard drive. On Android and iOS now, it supports third-party drives. So I can just plug my hard drive here into my Pixel. You can see we have access to it. It says there's an issue, but it should work. When we go up here, it should show up. Again, betas and such, it can get a little buggy, especially since it says there's an issue. I'm not going to format that. But I did, here we go, use as portable storage. Don't want to format it. But either way, it does work. I did have this working on my S10 earlier. There's no issues with it. It's probably just a beta bug or maybe something with my drive. But it supports on iOS now. So you can plug a drive directly into the Lightning port or Type-C on the iPad and have access to your hard drives. This is new in iOS. It's been around in Android for a bit, but it's new in iOS. Something else you now have access to is in the Files app on iOS, you have access to servers. So you can connect over 2 different servers. I believe there's an option up here. Yeah, you can connect to a server and get access. Like if you're hosting a Plex server, you can connect directly to it. On Android, you just have to download an app to do it. But it's super nice that you can now do it on iOS. And iOS now also gives you the option to store files on your device. Super cool. But to actually show you guys that files thing, let me grab my iPad here. Sorry. Let me grab my iPad and try this. Again, these are both betas, so they can get a little bit buggy. Let's go to Files and see if it shows up. Yep, you can see here Files. So now I have access to my SSD directly on my iPad. This SSD is the same SSD I use on my laptop, my desktop, my other phones. They all work together really well. You can see here I've got a screenshot, system information, high suite, Android. I've got everything here. So it does work, and it is really cool that Apple now supports that. Let's move that off to the side here. So yeah, those are some of the main differences between these two operating systems. Now there's a lot more, and I mean a lot more I did not get into. But most of those features would be specific to each device. And I kind of wanted to show the features each device has. So just off the top of my head, some features the devices got that I'm not going to show off, mostly because they're not the same on both. Android Q got a couple new features. They can force the dark mode, or at least it could in the previous betas. It has that new privacy features, digital well-being, it has all of that stuff. On iOS, there's a new really cool feature for app developers, where if you're working on an app on Xcode on a Mac, as you change the app in Xcode, it'll change it directly on the phone live, so you don't have to keep compiling to test. That was insane. There's a couple new AR emojis, Face ID is faster. It's just a lot of differences. And then back to Android, you have the new bubble heads and notifications. You've got a slightly changed UI. Let's see what else there is here. Location settings. Yeah, there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of upgrades in both. These are just some of the ones that are the same between the two devices. And then that really cool Sidecar feature that I just had to show off because of how cool it is. I just want to say I don't prefer one OS over the other. I use both every day. There's not a specific device I prefer to use. There's not one I like more. But these are just two devices. iOS is one of the most popular operating systems, as is Android is the most popular. But iOS is easy second on that list. So I want to show off the differences between those two. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the direction both Apple and Google are taking in their devices. I like it. It's kind of privacy focused, and they're definitely adding a lot of useful features. Most of Google's features actually come through app updates. That's why I wasn't able to say a lot of them, like, just going through it, because most of the new features here are in Google Assistant or something like that. Well, Apple doesn't do updates like that to their apps. If you need some app, if they want to add a new feature to Messages, it needs to be a whole system update. Well, Google can just update their app. That's why there's a bit of a discrepancy when people are saying, oh, there's like a ton of new features in Android Q, in iOS 13, and not that many new ones in Android Q. Yeah, because all of those features you would be getting in Android Q just came through an app update a couple days ago. Something like that. So it's hard to usually come up with a list because any of those big changes are going to be huge framework changes. On iOS, if the Messages app wants to get a new feature, it needs that update. So there's definitely a difference there, and that's why I'm not able to get you guys like a full list of all of those different features because they're different. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the direction Apple and Google are taking in their devices, and if you guys are excited for the future of mobile technology, specifically the software that runs on it.